You guys, so we are going to go over questions number 200 and hold on a second. All right, you guys, we're going to go over 285 to 294 today. Tomorrow we'll hit the 300 mark and then we are good. So tomorrow will be the very last day for you to have any more exposure to the questions itself. And then we're going to take the final next week and that is it. And just keep in mind that the final, you only have one day. So if you miss that day of final, you get it incomplete. We're not going to be issuing this like the day after the final. And you can't make it up after school because Ms. Jensen and I, we have other classes to teach. So it's not going to work. So it's just that one day. And if you're like, what day is it, Callahan? So you just go to your MS team. And it is going to be under your Algebra 1 CR lab. And then right here, where it says third period, Wednesday, December 15th at 7:45 till 9:30. So if you're going to be late, that's all the time you have to take the test. We can't give you any extra time. We have classes during fourth period, so you can't stay with us. So by the time 9:30 comes, either you have your final done or you don't. And that is basically it. So just keep that in mind. Don't be late on that day. Next Wednesday, 7:45. You have an hour and 45 minutes to take your 50-question test. So you have a little less than 2 minutes per question to get it right. You have to get 35 or better. And I suggest you do all 50 questions. We just had a student who took the final early, stopped the question at 36, and then missed the 75% by 5 questions. You know, so it's like if you would have just taken the time and did the rest of them and got that 5-question right, you would have passed. We can't curve this. You got to get a 75% on your own. Okay. So even if you get a 34 out of 35, 34, which is like a 74%, can't pass you. You got to get a 75% or higher. So just make sure you guys are aware of that. All right. With that said, let's take a look at question number 285. Take a moment. Go ahead and highlight the important information on that. Okay, what are the solutions to the quadratic equation? So first thing to do is I'm going to divide by the 9 to get rid of the 9 because opposite of a times is a divide. So then that part cancels. X squared equals 4/9. That's your first step. Second step, what's opposite of a square is a square root. So then what is square root of 4 and what is a square root of 9? So that square and square root cancels. And remember, you always have a plus and a minus because whenever you square root something, there's 2 answers. Square root of 4 gives you a 2. Square root of 9 gives you a 3. So which one matches plus or minus 2/3? And that was your correct answer. All right, 286, you guys, go ahead and highlight the correct answers. Sometimes like my little GT kids are like so literal. Like I gave them boxes to wrap with wrapping paper. And one of them, my little sophomore was like, but what are we wrapping? There's nothing to wrap in here. I'm like, it's supposed to be just the box. It's decoration. And she was like, really? Can I put something in there? I'm like, no, what are you gonna put? You gonna put some rocks in there? I'm like, what? I don't understand. What is the problem? I'm like, God. I'll be right back. Sounds good. Oh no, he is here. Oops. Mouse is not here. Wow. All right, which shows one way to determine this factor? Okay, so first you're gonna do, we're gonna group them. These two goes together. If you look at this is an x, 3 x's minus 12 times x and x. So what do they both share? 1x, 2x. So I'm gonna take x squared out, and what's left? X minus 12. So far, I'm like, B is not the correct answer because it doesn't have that. Then you're gonna take a look at the second part. Second part of this is you have this piece right here, okay, which is minus 2 times x plus 2 times 12. What do they both share? Well, they do both share. I could make this a negative 12 and a negative 2, which still gives me a positive 24 if I'm gonna put negative. But do you see how they both share a negative 2 right there? So I'm gonna move that 2 out, and I have x minus 12. That's left inside the parenthesis. So which one does that match? That's your answer. Now find the one that matches. Right there. Now, if you're to take this a step further on the task, do you see how these two are exactly the same? You will write that exactly the same like this. But then what you're going to do with these two numbers in the front is you put them in their individual parentheses. And this right here will be actually your final answer. Okay, let's go on to 287. Natalia, okay, that's actually my name and one of the people's name in this class, is writing a recursive formula to represent the sequence. What value should she use as a common ratio? Okay, keyword here is the common ratio. This is called a multiplier. I totally am spelling this wrong. Hold on. Multiplier. There you go. If I do cursive, sometimes I can't spell it correctly. I don't know why. It's just my brain's wired that way. Okay, so then your recursive formula looks like this. Recursive formula. Recursive formula is always going to be a to the n equals a to the n minus 1 plus d. Okay, so for this one, it's actually pretty simple. You just simply take these two numbers, or any of the two numbers, like 12 over 8. We got to reduce that. I could reduce it if I divide the top by 2 and the bottom by 2. 6 over 4, still divided by 2. So far, I have this as my ratio. we deal with this all day during 6th period. This is just how it is. Like they're sick and tired of going to their classes because they already went to the first 5. So now they just stand over there for the entire 50 minutes nonstop. And I'm like, can you please just like go to C house? I mean, like just break your time apart in between the 2 buildings, please. Or go home, right? Like what a concept. Go home. Now let's check to make sure that works. Okay, now let's look at the next 2 numbers. 18 over 12. Let's reduce that. It's almost like I want to start stuff, but I want there to be an audience watching me while I start this. And I'm like, oh my goodness, then it's not fun. Yeah, I'm just like, come on, guys. All right, so let's divide it by 2, divided by 2. So that's a 9 over 6. Divided by 3, divided by 3, 3 over 2. Is that the same one? Yes, it is. So that's your answer. You just have to check to make sure it is. Oh, you didn't have to go out there. I wasn't asking to go out.
No, but it's been bugging me today. It's just like if you don't want to go to class, go.
Yeah, just go away, please. Yep. It is smelly in there. Like, how insulting is that? You rather sit in a smelly room, bathroom with no ventilation than to go to your class? I'm like, really? You do know what people do in here, right? It's like, yeah. Oh, these little kiddos. All right, 288, you guys. Take a moment, highlight the important information, please. All right, so the point shown on the graph represents a number in geometric sequence. What is the initial value? Okay, so the initial value is where does your point start on the y axis? So copy that down first. And if you look at this right here, do you see how this point right here starts at 2? That's your answer, 2. $289, you guys. which represent a geometric sequence. Okay, so there are several, all right? So first thing, it's not A because if you connect the dot, that is a linear. Okay, write the linear, y equals mx plus b. So that's not geometric sequence, okay? Next one, if you take a look at this, it's still kind of like a little bit of a curve, but it is very linear. The correct answer here is C as in cat, and the reason for that is because we're looking at a geometric sequence. Your graph has to go from small numbers to big numbers very, very fast. Like, for example, like this, or like this. If you look at this question here, do you see how this is a geometric sequence? So this is your correct answer. And again, it's going from a small number to a very big number quickly. Kind of like if the earth was taken over by zombies and everybody's getting infected because they're getting bitten by zombies and everybody turned to zombies or vampires, you know, that'll be a geometric sequence. All right, you guys, 290. Let's see, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I'm gonna give you guys a mini little break right now. D. Which of the following shows one way to determine the factor of this by grouping? Didn't we just go over this one? I think we did, so we'll skip this one. It's totally fine. Yeah. 291. Let's go ahead and do this one by grouping. So let's go and take a look at the first part right there, 291. And we're going to go x, x, x plus 4x, x. That's the first piece. So you can ask yourself, what do they all have in common here?
Oh, yeah.
It's fine. I don't care. No, you don't have to apologize. That's fine. X squared, that's the first part. Then you're going to ask yourself, what's left? X and 4. So that's the first thing that you do. Next, you're going to take a look at the second piece of this, which is going to be right here. 5x and 20. So that's 5x plus 5 times 4. So that's how you break it down. And you ask yourself, what do they share? They share a 5. And so I'm going to put plus 5. Now what's left? X plus 4. That's your answer. Which one does that match? A, B, C, or D? All right, 292. Which exponential function is represented by this figure? So let's go and take a look to see first, where does this figure start at? Do you see how 3 right here? That's the initial point. So you have to have your initial point 3 like that. Inside the parenthesis, this is your common ratio, okay? And so you determine that common ratio by asking yourself, how do I get from a 6 to a 3? How do I get a 3 to a 1.5? So 6 to a 3, 3 to a 1.5. Isn't that like twice, right? 1.5 times 2 gives me 3. 3 times 2 gives me a 6. So 2 is my common ratio. And then you always have the x on top, like an exponent. So which one does that match? $293, you guys. Which exponential function has an initial value of 2? So initial value of 2 means that you can find that several ways. First way is if you go ahead and start at 2 right here, and then your graph goes through the 2 like that. Which this doesn't do that. That goes through 1/2. So that's not B. B is not correct. Or you have 2 right here outside of the parenthesis. That's your initial value. Or you start with on a table with 2. So definitely not that, not D. The initial value for C is 3, but the initial value for A is 2. So your answer is A as in apple. $294, last question. Considering the exponential function like this, what is the value of growth? Value of growth, okay, is always going to be the number inside the parenthesis. So what's inside the parenthesis? 15. That's your answer. All right, you guys, that is the end